are going to listen to this book by Vernadsky, The Biosphere and the Noosphere. Are you ready? Prepare yourself.
The Biosphere and the Noosphere by W.I. Vernadsky, member of the Academy of Sciences of the USSR. The following article is composed of an introductory abstract of a paper completed in 1998, recently published in Transactions of the Connecticut Academy of Sciences Volume 35. 35 pp. 483 to 517 under the editorship of Professor G. E. Hutchinson, and a new essay, written in 1943 and translated from the Russian manuscript by Dr. George Vernadsky of Yale University. Two contributions together present the general intellectual outlook of one of the most remarkable scientific leaders of the present century. The translation of the quotation under the frontispiece from a letter to Professor Petrunkevich is as follows: I look forward with great optimism. I think that we undergo not only an historical, but a planetary change as well. We live in a transition to the noosphere. Cordial greetings, W. Vernadsky. The table, reproduced in abstract below, that forms the main feature of the earlier paper, calls attention to many properties of living bodies that appear so elementary that they are in danger of neglect. It is an instructive experience to go through the table applying the criteria to the crystallizable viruses, the nature of which was not apparent when the earlier paper was written. Editor, the Biosphere. Living matter is the totality of all organisms present on the Earth at any one time. It is usually such a totality that is important. Though in dealing with the effect of man on the processes of this planet, a single individual may be of importance. The living matter of the Earth may be regarded as the sum of the average living matter of all the taxonomically recognizable groups. Each of these groups is said to consist of homogeneous living matter. Living matter exists only in the biosphere M. This includes the whole atmospheric troposphere, the oceans, and a thin layer in the continental regions, extending down 3 kilometers or more. Man tends to increase the size of the biosphere. The biosphere is distinguished as the domain of life, but also, and more fundamentally, as the region where changes due to incoming radiation can occur. Within the biosphere, matter is markedly heterogeneous and may be distinguished as inert matter or living matter. The inert matter greatly predominates in mass or volume. There is a continual migration of the sad needs of academician V. Vernadsky. S. death on January 6, 1994 5 has reached us in going to press. Editor, 1. Atoms from the inert matter to living matter and back again. All the objects of study in the biosphere are to be regarded as the natural bodies of the biosphere. They may be of varying complexity, inert, living, or bioinert as in the case of soil or lake water. The study of all phenomena has a unity, leading to the production of a body of systematized knowledge, the corpus scientiarum, which tends to grow like a snowball. This corpus includes all systematized knowledge, and is contrasted to the results of philosophy, religion, and art where truth may be led intuitively. The systematized history of these activities belongs to the corpus. Two concepts have been inadequately stressed in the past. Partour was correct in regarding the preponderance of optically active compounds as the most characteristic general property of living matter and its products. This idea is of immense importance. B. The functions of living organisms in the energetics of the biosphere have been seriously neglected. Biogeochemical energy may be expressed in the velocity with which the biosphere could be colonized by a given species. For certain bacteria, the limiting velocity of extension of a dividing chain of cells tending to embrace the whole circumference of the Earth would tend to approach the velocity of sound. Bearing in mind these introductory principles, the difference between living matter and inert matter of the biosphere is expressed in a table, here given in condensed form. The differences in this table are not merely differences with regard to energetics and chemical properties. They also involve a fundamental difference in the spatio-temporal manifestations of living and inert matter. It is suggested that the geometry appropriate to the bodies of living organisms may be different from that appropriate to inert bodies. The living natural bodies exist only in the biosphere and only as discrete bodies. They have never been observed to arise except from other living bodies. Their entry into the biosphere from cosmic space is hypothetical and has never been proved. Discrete inert forms are concentrated in the biosphere but are also found much deeper in the Earth's crust. They are created in the biosphere, but also enter it from below in volcanic phenomena, and from cosmic space as meteorites and dust. Two are living natural bodies. In their cellular morphology, protoplasmic nature and reproductive capacity have a unity, which must be connected with the genetic connection with each other in the course of geological time. Inert natural bodies are extremely diverse and have no common structural or genetic connections. The chemical differences between right and left enantiomorphs characterize the state of physical space occupied by living organisms. Enantiomorphs. The left and right enantiomorphs of the same chemical compounds have the same properties in inert bodies. The number soft dextral and sinistride crystals formed in an inert medium are the same. The new living natural bodies are born only from pre-existing ones. From time to time new generations arise differing from the preceding ones. The rise of the central nervous system has increased the geological R of living matter, notably since the end of the Pliocene. New inert bodies are created in the biosphere irrespective of the natural bodies that previously existed. In general, the same kind of natural bodies are formed by inert processes, as were formed 2 billion years ago. New kinds of inert bodies appear only under the influence of living matter, notably man. There are no liquid or gaseous living bodies, though liquids and gases are present in the mesomorphous or solid living bodies. Spontaneous, largely self-regulated movement is characteristic of living bodies. This may be passive as in reproduction, but the effect of reproduction is for the biosphere to be colonized by a process comparable to the expansion of a gas. Liquid and gaseous inert bodies take the form of the receptacles in which they are contained. Solid or mesomorphous inert bodies in general show no motion peculiar to the body as a whole. There is a continual stream of atoms passing to and from living organisms from and into the biosphere. Within the organ ISMS, a vast and changing number of molecules are produced by processes not otherwise known in the biosphere.
Your mama.
The inert natural bodies change only from outside causes, either to the exception of radioactive materials. The number of living natural bodies is quantitatively related to the size of the biosphere. The number of inert natural bodies is defined by the general properties of matter and energy, and is independent of the size of the planet. The mass of living matter has remained fairly constant, being determined by radiant solar energy and the biogeochemical energy of colonization, but apparently the mass increases towards a limit, and the process is not yet complete. The area of manifestation of inert natural bodies in the biosphere is limited by the shear of the latter and increases only as the biosphere is expanded by the motion of living matter. The minimum size of a living natural body is determined by respiration, and is of the order of 10 inches 6 cms. The maximum size has never exceeded IO4. The range, IO10, is not great. B. The minimum size of an inert natural body in the biosphere is determined by the degree of dispersion of matter and energy, i.e., the size of the ultimate particles of physics. The maximum size is determined by the size of the biosphere. The range is 10 IO or more. X. The chemical composition of living bodies is a function of their own properties. B. The chemical composition of inert bodies is a function of the properties of the medium in which they are formed. 11. The number of kinds of chemical compounds in living bodies is connected with the kinds of individual organisms and probably reaches many millions. B. The number of different kinds of chemical compounds in inert bodies is limited to a few thousands. XII.